Sometimes, the stories that really stick with you are the darker ones, the times when things seem to completely unravel.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And today we're looking at one of those times, a really stark period in South Florida.
We're talking late 1970s, early 1980s, an era just defined by this collision of organized crime, unbelievable violence, all fueled by the drug trade.
It left deep scars on the communities caught in the middle.
What's so striking, I think, is how blatant it all was.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't happening hidden away somewhere. It was right out in the open.
Exactly. The violence wasn't in the shadows. It was erupting in public places, middle of the day.
Mm.
It just shattered any sense of normal safety.
That Daylin Mall incident, July 1979, that's just a terrifying example, isn't it?
It really is.
Not some back alley deal gone bad. This was, well, an execution right there in a busy shopping center. Can you sort of paint a picture of that?
Yeah, it was around 2:30 in the afternoon, inside the Crown Liquor Store there. A group of men, heavily armed, went after German Jimenez Pineso.
He was a big name in the Colombian networks.
Oh, yes, a major figure. He had his bodyguard with him, Juan Carlos Hernandez. And what happened next was just brutal firepower.
Not just a quick shootout. The descriptions make it sound like a sustained attack.
Oh, it was. Dozens and dozens of rounds fired. Not just inside the liquor store, it spilled out into the parking lot. Cars were hit. Just chaos.
And the result?
Pineso and his bodyguard Hernandez were killed. And terribly, two employees at the liquor store, completely innocent bystanders, were wounded in the crossfire.
Even the getaway vehicle. It seemed almost calculated to send a message.
Right, this van marked Happy Time Complete Party Supply, found abandoned not far away.
Seems almost darkly ironic.
It does. And inside, investigators found an arsenal. Automatic weapons, body armor. It just showed the level of planning, the resources these groups had.
And this specific event, that's where the name for the area came from.
Yeah, that's the story, yeah. Police officer at the scene, looking at the aftermath, apparently called them the Cocaine Cowboys. And the name stuck. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? These guys, armed to the teeth, acting like they were completely untouchable.
And it's important to remember, this wasn't the start of the violence. Things were already bad.
Exactly. The first half of 1979, even before Dadeland, was already considered the bloodiest period South Florida had seen up to that point. Dadeland it turned the volume way up, made it impossible to ignore.
And you think about law enforcement back then, what they were up against.
It's almost hard to imagine now.
Yeah.
The police typically, they had standard six-shot revolvers.
Standard issue.
Right. And they're facing criminals with semi-automatic submachine guns, just completely outgunned.
And the investigative tools were different too, right? No DNA testing back then.
No, not like today.
Right.
Forensic science was much more limited. Surveillance was difficult. It was a huge challenge, just gathering evidence.
So for the people living there, the community, the fear must have been immense. Seeing this kind of violence, not on TV, but at the mall where you shop.
It created this pervasive sense of fear, absolutely. The violence wasn't abstract anymore. It was right there in public spaces. It just eroded that feeling of everyday safety.
And the federal government had to step in?
It reached a point where they couldn't ignore it. The brazenness of the crime waves, especially after Dadeland, led to a pretty significant federal response.
Wasn't it George H.W. Bush who was vice president then?
Yes, he spearheaded the creation of a federal task force. Its specific goal was to combat this explosion of drug crime in South Florida. It was a clear signal that this was being taken very, very seriously at the highest levels.
And looming over all of this, tied into so much of the violence, is one name in particular, Griselda Blanco.
Griselda Blanco, what a figure. Known as the Godmother, sometimes the Black Widow, the Cocaine Godmother. The names alone tell you something.
A central player.
Absolutely pivotal in the cocaine trade, really through the 70s and 80s, mostly working with the Medellin cartel, running things out of Colombia, but heavily impacting Miami, New York, too.
And the scale of her operation, the money involved was just astronomical, wasn't it?
Yeah, estimates put her net worth somewhere around $2 billion.
$2 billion.
Staggering wealth. But it was built on, incredible violence and trafficking. She had this reputation for just absolute ruthlessness.
Even her smuggling methods were kind of innovative in a dark way.
She was quite creative, yeah. Known for using things like specially made underwear, bras, girdles, with hidden pockets to smuggle cocaine into the U.S., often using female couriers.
Because it might draw less suspicion back then.
Potentially, yeah. It showed a certain level of cunning in avoiding detection, given the security measures of the time.
It's just chilling, the level of calculation in all this.
Yeah.
And her violence wasn't just aimed outwards at rivals.
No, not at all. She was apparently notorious for eliminating anyone she saw as a threat, or anyone disloyal, or anyone who owed her money, or even slighted her.
No hesitation.
Seemingly none. Rivals, associates, people who crossed her. And she's often credited with, well, popularizing the motorcycle drive-by shooting. That became such a terrifying signature of the era.
And her connections went right to the top of the cartels, people like Pablo Escobar.
Reports suggest they knew each other for a long time, maybe from early on. As they both rose through the ranks, their paths definitely crossed. She was a major player in that whole structure.
But eventually, law enforcement did catch up with her, though it wasn't quite the end of her story.
Right. She was arrested in California in 1985, drug trafficking charges, got 15 years, served about 10.
And then more charges.
Then she faced murder charges down in Miami, ended up pleading guilty to 3 counts in 98, got another 10 years. But even from prison, remarkably, she apparently kept some control over her business. Her son helped run things.
It just shows how hard it is to completely dismantle these networks. Even behind bars, the influence can continue.
Definitely. Then she was deported back to Colombia in 2004. You might think that was the end of it, but
But it wasn't. Her death was almost poetic justice in a grim way.
it was incredibly ironic, wasn't it? Assassinated in Medellin in 2012. And how was she killed?
Motorcycle drive-by.
The very method she helped popularize. A stark echo of her own tactics.
Some of the murders linked to her,
Yeah.
they're particularly brutal. The story of the little boy, Johnny Castro.
It's just horrifying. 1982, he was only 2 years old.
2 years old.
The target was supposedly his father, someone who'd apparently upset Blanco's sons. The hit went wrong, they missed the father, killed the child instead. And the reports, they say Blanco was almost pleased.
Pleased.
Reportedly, yes. Thought killing the child would hurt the father more. Just a chilling level of cruelty.
It's hard to even process that kind of thinking. And there were others, like the Lorenzo couple.
Alfredo and Griselda Lorenzo, also 1982. They were involved in dealing, apparently owed her money, killed right in their home.
In front of their children, I read.
Yes, reportedly happened right in front of their kids. It just speaks to the absolute lack of any boundary, any regard for life during that time.
And going back to Dayland, there's a strong suspicion she was behind that too.
Yeah, certainly investigators like Nelson Andreo, a former homicide detective who worked these cases extensively, strongly believe she masterminded the Dadeland shooting.
Why? To take out Pinesso, settle a debt?
Potentially both. Eliminating a rival, clearing debts. It just fit the pattern of how disputes were settled in that world. Pure violence.
And the sheer volume of unsolved murders from that time in Miami-Dade. It's like a dark legacy.
It really is. So many cold cases. Jeffrey Owen Warner in 75, linked to drugs. Glenn Gibbs, a federal witness, killed by a car bomb in 85.
Yeah.
Felipe Santisteban, Pedro Luis Castellan. The list goes on.
And solving them was so difficult.
Immensely. You had the fear factor witnesses terrified to talk. You had suspects who could easily move between countries. And law enforcement, as we said, often outgunned and lacking the technology we have now. It created this environment where getting away with murder was disturbingly possible.
The violence even came back to haunt her own family, didn't it?
According to the DEA, yeah. 3 of her 4 sons were apparently murdered after they were deported to Colombia.
A truly grim outcome.
It's a terrible testament to the cycle of violence in that world. Once you're in that deep, it rarely ends well.
Looking back at this whole period, this Cocaine Cowboys era, it's just a disturbing insight into what happens when organized crime gains that much power and the human cost involved.
Absolutely. The violence was extreme, the impact on the community profound. It really shows the destructive power of the drug trade, not just on those directly involved, but on society itself.
Beyond the big names like Blanco, beyond the headlines, you just have countless lives ruined, families destroyed, communities living in fear.
That's the real tragedy, the sheer human cost of it all.
And even now, decades later, you feel the echoes, don't you? The unsolved cases, the stories. It's a reminder that this kind of intense violence leaves wounds that take a very, very long time to heal, if they ever do.
It really makes you think about how these cycles of violence persist, how the consequences can ripple out for generations. It's a sobering history.